in his absence for your work. You have carried us in prayer throughout this pandemic, whether that's been on conference call. Thank you. That is noteworthy, and we honor you for doing so. Listen, I want to, so much is happening throughout our community and throughout this country. I want to encourage you to keep praying for our community, keep praying for one another, and continue to ask God to provide his angels of protection on a consistent basis around us, over us, on a daily basis. And I so pray that you would do so. I want to finish this conversation of teaching this narrative that we were sharing with you as it relates to Philippians chapter 3. And we dug into rather deeply understanding and discovering that we have a dual citizenship. You remember that? And we talked about this heavenly citizenship, and while we have this heavenly citizenship, that we also have our earthly citizenship where we're functioning and operating here on earth. And we shared that with you in our last time gathering for the purpose of understanding that our mindset and our language and even our relationship, right, should be centered around not necessarily what we are doing here on earth, but who we represent while we're here on earth. Does that make sense? And so we talked about that, and we shared that with you because I think it's important, especially we talked about out of the abundance of the heart, right? We talked about what will speak, the mouth will speak, all right? And so as we're studying tonight, and I want you to continue to interact with those who are not in the sanctuary but who are experiencing us through the virtual experience. So make sure you're interacting with those who are on Facebook. If you're watching YouTube, make sure you're interacting. We don't ever want to lose that audience. You got me? And so make sure you're interacting there as well. And so we talked about this heavenly citizenship, and we talked about this heavenly language, and we talked about that and the importance of having heavenly relationships. And what all of that really leads us to, or guides us to, that the way we live, listen to this, I want you to note this tonight, the way we live should not be in the mindset of backwards, but everything we should do, we should be looking forward, right? In the simplicity of that statement, here is what I'm driving to. Here's what I'm focusing on, is that as we live our lives, a lot of times we can get stuck in the things that have happened, right, in the past, and those experiences. And don't negate this, because history and those things in our past are important. And so we never negate that. But when we start talking about this spirituality piece, right, we want to make sure that we are forward-moving people. Forward-moving people. Well, Pastor, if I'm moving forward, where am I looking? Right? Because if I'm moving forward, where am I looking? Is there a focal point in my movement forward, right? And the answer to that question is yes, because we're looking unto Jesus Christ. Remember, we talked about that. That's our focus. That's where we're looking. We're looking from a heavenly perspective. For the first time tonight, those of you who are watching virtually, type that on the screen. Those of you who are in the sanctuary with us, a heavenly perspective. We're looking at it from a heavenly point of view, which is so critical for us, because what it helps us to do is to keep ourselves in check, right? A heavenly perspective helps us to keep ourselves in check. And I think so many times we, because if you're like me, you really don't like people checking you and telling you, okay, you got that wrong. That's the human side of me, right? Don't look at me, don't frown at me, because you're like that too. It's difficult, sometimes hard to swallow. But if you have a heavenly perspective, then it helps you for self-checking. Because here's the balance. Here's what you can ask yourself. You can say, wait a minute, is that heavenly language? Am I representing my heavenly citizenship with this relationship or with this language or with how I'm behaving? Is all of this a heavenly objective? And so when you ask that question, you can pause, evaluate what you're doing, and now, as opposed to people needing to correct you, you can have those moments where you can self-check yourself. Type that on the screen as well. I got to learn how to self-check me. Yeah, I got to learn how to self-check me. Because a lot of times we don't like to check ourselves, and before we know it, we spend our lives going backwards trying to fix stuff that should have never been broken. Do you hear me? And that's where we get in trouble. That's why when Paul talks about this Christ-centered community, when Paul talks about taking this biblical approach to ministry, he's looking at these personalities, because you got to get to the place where you know how to put yourself in check. You got me? And I think that's where we get in trouble, is that we don't tell ourselves enough stop. Well, we talked about this last week. Stop, pause, redirect that, right? Because that's getting ready to get you in trouble. Or that's getting ready to have you say something that you're going to have to go back and apologize for later on. And now, instead of you living your life forward, you're now living your life what? Backwards, because you got to keep going back, fixing stuff. I want you to note this, fixing stuff that should have never been broken. Fixing stuff that should have never been broken. Here it is, Philippians chapter 3, verse number 21, as we conclude chapter 3, verse number 24, verse number 21. Philippians chapter 3, verse number 21, give you a moment to get there. When you got it, scream back at me and say, I got it. If you ain't got it yet, say, hold on, Pastor Jay, I'm getting there. I'm still in Genesis. I'm trying to get back there. Yeah, Philippians chapter 3, verse number 21. Who shall change our veiled body, our vowed body? Who shall change it? Right? And when you look at that first sentence in Philippians chapter 3, you have to ask yourself, or at least I did, right? Why is it that there needs to be a change? You got me? Look at Philippians chapter 3, verse number 21. Who shall what? Change our veiled body, our veiled body. Who shall make that change? And the question I have as I was reading that is that, why is it that a change is needed? Right? Because if everything is functioning, if what I am in is so good, why is it that something needs to what? Change. And then I decided to look up this word, avail, in the Greek to see what it really meant. It blew my mind, it did. It talked about depression. It talked about humiliation. It talked about low estate. It talked about no value. You get it? When I looked that word up, that's what it talked about. It talked about depression, low estate, humiliation, Sister William, no value. And who in the world want to be housed in anything like that? Right? Who wants to be housed in anything like that? And the question that Paul asks, who shall change it? How does it change? Well, here it is, because we're talking about, remember, keep this in the backdrop for the foundation of teaching, we're talking about living our lives forward and not what? And as we're looking forward, we're looking at it from a heavenly what? Heavenly perspective. Very good. Thank you. And so that's what we're trying to come. It said, who shall change it? Who shall change it. The question becomes, again, why does it need to be changed? And then, if it needs to be changed, hear me, why do you spend so much time trying to work on something that needs to be changed? You keep throwing stuff at it. You keep trying to fix it up. You keep trying to make it better. But you can't. Because it wasn't designed to be restored. It was designed to be changed. Why? Why? Because we're living our lives for it. Because that's a heavenly what? Perspective. And because that's a heavenly perspective, you got to ask yourself that, okay, Pastor, I get it that once God changes us, we get to heaven, we're going to have a new body, right? If you're living, watch this, if you're living forward and you know you're going to have a new body, here's what Paul is trying to teach the church at Philippi. If you know that you're going to change when you get to heaven, that change should not happen when you get to heaven. It should be happening now. Does that make sense? Because if I'm looking forward, if I'm going to change anyway, then I should be making changes not when I get to heaven. Hello? I should be changing when? Now. And I think the biggest struggle we have is that we struggle with changing now. Yeah. And so our focus is, here it is, we got to transition, right? We got to make this transition. The transition is this: you understand that where you are is not a good place, right? And so you focus on fixing it and changing it and not trying to work on it. Here's why the mentality of working on it is bad. Listen to me. It's because for so many years in church, that's what we've been doing. As a matter of fact, you think it's pompous, cute, and spiritual when you say God's still working on me. That is your way of saying, in an environment like this where you think people are going to say, that's right, girl, God working on all of us. No, stop. Why is he working? Why is it that you making him work so hard? And if your testimony has been, God's still working on me, and you over 30, you got God working beyond retirement age. 30 years. You got enough sense to say, after 20, I'm quitting. Come here. Come here. After 20, 25 years, you ready to give it up. Shake your head at me. Talk to me on the screen. Right? You ready to go. But then after 25 years of being connected to spirituality, your testimony is God still. And we cheer people on, because I have too. Because you say, ooh, that's good. They admitted that God working on them. That's good. And now you're trying to figure out 25 years later. I'm convinced that God ain't working on you because you ain't working. And so transition is this. We have to have, here it is, we have to have the desire to change. Right? That's the big piece. We have to have the desire to what? To change. That's where it starts. And when you have a heavenly perspective, you understand that a heavenly perspective demands change. All right, type that on the screen. A heavenly perspective demands change. Come on, interact with those on the screen. A heavenly perspective demands change. Because if it's heavenly, Sister Williams, it can't remain the same. Not if it's heavenly. Here it is right here in the text. I can prove it. Look at this. That it may be fashioned like unto his glorious body. Right? Because I don't want you to change and become worse. Come here. Because a lot of times you can say, people will say, well, I've changed, but they didn't change for the better. I'm doing stuff different now. I've changed, but your heart's still black. And when change takes place, His glory, it shouldn't be for the worse. Change should be for what? I knew I had a smart church. It should be for the better. And that's what Paul describes in the text, because he said when change takes place, look at this, it's going to be fashioned unto the glorious body of Jesus Christ. In other words, you're going to look like him and act like him. Why? Because that's your citizenship and that's who you what? Represent. Right? Look at the fashion taking place. Looking like him, becoming like him, because that is the biblical approach to ministry. It's as we're changing, we're becoming more like what? More like him. And get off the tricycle. Going slow. You're on the tricycle because you ain't really trying to change, so you just move it. You understand? Get on. And keep hollering ouch because your knees keep hitting the handlebars because you outgrown it. It's time for you to ride something different. Come on. Ain't that something? Touch yourself and say, I got to change. Yeah, me too. Me too. And as I'm changing, because I have a heavenly perspective and I'm heavenly looking forward, I'm looking now at me saying, oh, wait a minute, this is not right. And it's time for me to what? To change. Here's why you want to change. Check it out. Here's why you want to change. And this blessed me. Now I'm serious. This blessed me. As a matter of fact, when I share this with you, I can be done and I'm good because this blessed me. Because anytime there's change, right? I'm human. You're human, right? And if change happens, you want to benefit from the change. Don't you? Come on. If something don't change, right? At least if it changes, I can benefit from what changed. Ain't nothing worse in the world for everything around you change and you don't reap any benefits of the change. You're trying to figure out, well, why did it change? You don't change jobs. You don't change jobs. I know I wouldn't. Some people make lateral moves. Somebody, what did you change? Well, I was just tired of that environment. Wait a minute now. Now, I ain't making lateral movements where there are no benefits. If I'm going to make a change, I want to make a change, not laterally, but my change has to be upward. Is there more hours? Is there more pay? Is there increase in benefits? Holler back. And you sure ain't going to make a decrease change. I ain't like the environment, so I took a pay cut. No, ma'am, no, sir. Shake your head like that. I ain't doing that. And so when there is change, there needs to be benefit. And I believe when we take a biblical approach to ministry and God allows us to change, and we change and the environment changes, there are benefits when change takes place. Can I show you what they are? Here it is. The glorious body according to the working whereby he is able, who referring to God, is able, look at this, to subdue. Pause for a minute. Because when you think about subdue, you think about consuming it or in control of it, right? I subdued it, I got it, right? Mind you, when we looked at the reason the body needs to be changed, and this word talks about depression, lower state humiliation, right? And then we come down to this word subdue, and when I looked at that, Sister Porter, subdue was not how we think about something being consumed, but subdue suggested that all things were in order. That what God was doing, because change had taken place, he was putting all things in its proper place. Oh, wrong church. Wrong church, wrong people. Here's why. Here's why I say that. Because if, in fact, the benefit of change means this, that God is putting my life in order, that's a reason for me to shout. Because I'm willing to make a change, Sister Rogers, here's what the text is teaching us. Because I'm willing to have a heavenly perspective, here's what God is doing for you. He says, I'm going to take your life that was in a bad place, and I'm going to put all things and I'm going to arrange things in order for you. In other words, I'm going to eliminate any potential of chaos and confusion in your life because I'm setting you up to put some stuff in order. And I don't know about anybody else, but you've been pushing, you've been praying, you've been pleading with God, and you need God to put some stuff back in order, your marriage in order, your finances in order, your health in order, your job in order. Lord, whatever you do, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to raise my voice. Just put it in order for me. It's Wednesday night. We can't be standing up and stuff. Somebody holler, Lord, put it in order. Stuff been out of place. Stuff been out of whack. Crazy stuff happening. You need some order and structure in your life. And therefore, whenever there is order, there's always success, because God loves when he puts stuff back together and put it all in the right place and puts you in position for great success. Why? Because you've got your life in. He says, here's what I'm able to do. Why am I able to do that? He said, why am I able to do that? Because you've made the change. You fashioned yourself to be good representatives of me. And because you're representing me well, I cannot have stuff out of order in your life. But here's what I'm doing. He says, I'm going to subdue all things, watch this, unto himself. Benefit number one, got you. Benefit number one is he's going to put it in order, right? And when he puts it in order, second benefit is this. He's going to stay with it to make sure that it never gets out of order. You missed the benefits. I thought we was a benefit church. He says, number one, I'm going to do what? Put it in what? Order. And then when I put it in order, I'm going to keep my presence in so it can never get what? Somebody holler, that makes sense to me. And that's what God is doing in your life. He's putting stuff in order, and while he's putting in order, he's showing up to make sure that it never gets out of order again. And I came prophetically tonight to speak into your ear and to speak into your life to tell you that your life is about to be changing. God is putting it in order, and he's declaring that it's not going to get out of order again. He don't care who tries to show up, disturb it, get in the way. It'll never get out of order again. Because this is the season that I'm putting all things in order, and I'm going to stay with you so it never gets out of order again. It's not going to get out of order. Again, every area of your life, God is going to keep in order. He says, I'm tired of the church. I'm tired of people trying to function at a dysfunctional level. And a lot of times you can get so in a rut that you don't even realize that what you're doing is dysfunctional because you think it's functional, but because you're doing it. But God is saying to us, I am no longer going to allow you to be confused by dysfunctionalism, and because you're moving in it, you think it works. No, ma'am, no, sir. He says, I'm going to get at a place where it's all in order, and it functions better when everything is in. It works better when all things are what? In order. It moves better when all things are in. The environment is conducive for success when all things are in. And if you're excited about God is getting ready to put all things in order in your life, as we get ready to log off here, come on, give God the best praise you can give him. Make it sound like rain in this place. Why? Because he's putting stuff back in its rightful place. He's putting it back in. Yeah. Yeah, he's putting it back in order. Listen, thank you so much for logging in with us for these 25, 30 minutes, and thank you so much for being a Hill Watcher. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you. We appreciate you. Those of you who are on the watching the virtual, we appreciate those who are in person with us as well. We thank God for this balance and being able to continue working in ministry this way. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you. Don't forget in-person worship on this Sunday morning. That link should be on our website. It should be on the Facebook page. You can sign up for in-person worship this Sunday morning. Come in with your shouting shoes and be ready to go, because we're going to have a time in this place. God has given me a word that I believe is going to be a blessing to you. I'm telling you right now, you don't want to miss what God's going to do in this place on Sunday morning. Sister Johnson is coming with some brief announcements, and until then, thank you for being a Hill Watcher. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you.
Thank you, Pastor Johnson. Once again, please note that we have intercessory prayer at 6:30. Our prayer time has changed, so we will have intercessory prayer at 6:30 every Wednesday, both virtually and in person. Make sure you are signing up for intercessory prayer and walking through the Word Bible study with Pastor Johnson on our website or Facebook page by next Tuesday, June 2nd. Or you can log on through our various media outlets. Join us every Sunday at 9 a.m. via our conference call on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for Sunday school.
Now and forever.
Also, make sure that you are joining us this Sunday for in-person worship at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock for in-person worship, and you also have to sign up on Facebook or our website. The 12th year pastoral anniversary will be held on Sunday, June the 6th, the first Sunday of June. We are excited about that. Each member is asked to plant a seed of $125 per person. Leaders and ministries, you know what you have been asked to give. The colors for the pastoral anniversary are camouflage and red, per Pastor Johnson. So make sure that you have your camouflage and red, or camouflage or red, for the pastoral anniversary. Just join us so we can look like one body. After the worship service that morning, we will have a parking lot party with the Johnsons. So immediately following worship, we will have a parking lot party with the Johnsons. So make sure you stick around after worship for that parking lot party. And as always, to order Pastor Johnson's first book project, Looking Within, you can go to LaKeeVCJohnson.com, Kobo.com, Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, or you can see Lady J here after worship. Thank you.
Sing a piece of this for me. Whoa, you are my king. Oh, yeah. Come on, all over the world. Let's decree and declare, you are my king. Oh, you are my king. Yeah. Come on, you got the part now. You are my king. Whoa. Whoa. Let's